I actually, on the bottom, I am wearing just fleece pants.
Oh, I love that. Awesome. So do you want to just introduce yourself real quick so people know who you are?
Sure. So, hi, my name is Greta Grosch, and I am an actor and writer here in the Twin Cities. And I would say my biggest claim to fame for the last 15 years or so is that I am the writer and an original cast member of the Church Basement Ladies musicals. So that's what I've been keeping myself busy with up until, well, I guess March of this year.
Yeah, so you wrote this show for us. And what was the process like on that?
Sure. So I'm a huge fan and supporter of Lakeshore Players. So again, with this pandemic, everybody's sort of trying to reevaluate and come up with new ways to tell stories. So Rob, I knew Rob Thomas, and so he contacted me and asked if they could commission me to write this radio show for the holidays. And the parameters they gave were I would be working with the White Bear Lake Historical Society. So something between that took place like in the 30s or 50s, just inspired by White Bear Lake history. Again, a radio play, cast of 5 to 8. And then sort of some time parameters. And that was just basically it. And so that was like, okay, so within that, I could kind of do whatever I want. So that was the original conversations. I contacted Graydon Royce, who he's a Star Tribune had been a theater critic for 25 years. So he had criticized my work, but over the years we've gotten to be friends. And so then I had invited him to write one of the Church Basement Ladies with me. So when it came time to work on this project, we'd been looking for something else to do. So I contacted him right away. So it was really fun because when we did the show, because the parameters are sort of the 30s to the 50s, the show really takes place in two time periods. 1953, which is the year that Lakeshore Players was born.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started doing my research, I was like, well, how convenient is that? And then we go back in time to 1933. So it's a radio play within sort of this play. And so Graydon and I would just split the script and we'd each work on one time period and then we'd swap and then we'd swap back and then we'd swap. So it was really actually very efficient because we're creating these characters. So the 1933 characters, some of them, I'm just going to tell you, there might be some gangsters in it. And those gangsters are real. So, I mean, that's sort of fun to like breathe life into them. But then whenever you're inventing characters, there's sort of this crazy power about being a writer because you invent a character and then they go and they hire somebody to play that character to sort of create the fantasy that I had in my head. That part's really fun. Like I said, in the 1953 characters, those are all fictional. We do have Cedric Adams, who is a real life WCCO personality. So people might remember him in the Twin Cities. He was a huge icon. So he was around in 1953. So he is around to host this radio show. Really fun for me to weave fact and fiction together and sort of blur the lines. And I kept saying to them, this doesn't have to be accurate, right? I mean, this can be inspired by history. So don't come here and expect that you're like, oh, now I know everything about White Bear Lake history, because we are taking some artistic liberties.
Where did you get the idea of this story and these characters? Where did that all kind of come from?
Well, because of the pandemic, we have to kind of do a radio play. But the thing that's really unique about this, because a lot of people are sort of doing radio plays, but we're also filming this one. And so it's going to actually be an experience. So then ideally, and as you and I are recording this, we're going into film later today. So I'm so excited to see how that works because ideally, the audience at home can feel like they're the radio audience. So that's always a big part of everything I create is how we can make the audience feel like they're connected. And, you start Googling 1953 and then you see what was going on in the world and then one idea pops up and then another. But I always kept in my mind that we're going to be filming this. And so our audience at home is going to be able to watch it. And because we're in this crazy time, wanting to have fun, but also to, in a loose way, acknowledge how these holidays are going to be different for all of us. So it's all these crazy pieces. Sometimes you wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you're like, oh, 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 I have an idea. And Graydon actually sent me an email once at 5 o'clock in the morning. He said, I am obsessed with this play. And it was, he woke up in the morning and he just had to send me an email right away.
So you're talking a little bit about the history of White Bear Lake and how you're able to incorporate that into the show. We partnered with the White Bear Lake Area Historical Society. So tell me a little bit more about that partnership.
Yeah. So one of the folks there, Rihanna, I talked with her just sort of about like we're taking place in 1953 and sort of 1933. And then she sent me a file of just lots of information, sort of what was going on. Highway 61 was a new big 4-lane highway. So, I would ask her things like when did the streetcars stop running in White Bear Lake, and what's the history of Highway 61, and what was the main street, and then what restaurants and stores and things like that. So all of that stuff is real, and so that was really fun for us. So that's how we partnered with them to create the environment of where these shows are taking place.
That's so cool. And then you mentioned too that there are maybe a few gangsters in this show. That is based a little bit in truth, correct?
Well, yeah. First of all, you may know that they would come and hang out in St. Paul, and they had an agreement with the St. Paul police that they wouldn't cause any trouble, and the police would just sort of, give them a lot of rope. So, it was this sort of relationship. But White Bear Lake is gorgeous. And so they would go and they would hang out in the cottages around the lake and go to all the restaurants around there. And the word on the street is that Al Capone and Bugs Moran got together in one of the cottages and did some business and stuff. So they really would hang out in White Bear Lake to come, because it was like this great summer retreat. I don't know if they went fishing, but you never know. And Al Capone is one of those that it's a little tricky whether or not he came or not. He definitely hung around in Minnesota, but they know for sure that like Alvin Karpis and Ma Barker and the Barker Gang, they definitely for sure hung out in White Bear Lake.
That's incredible.
And apparently, and they were really good neighbors. They paid their bills. They like even when they were being run out of town, they made sure to stop and pay off their liquor bill. And the people in the community sort of didn't mind having them around. And
well, how great to be able to then incorporate them into this show.
And because of the time that we're in, we wanted this to be silly and Christmassy and funny. And again, try to create this feeling that the audience at home is in the radio audience with us. And then it's a little sentimental at the end. So the first time we had a Zoom reading. And the night before, I sent the script off to everybody. And I was like, it's horrible. It's terrible. It's awful. it's going to be terrible. And then the next day we read it. And of course, they're talented. So, but it was great. It's really touching at the end. And Rob, who's directing it, and Elena, who's another staff member at Lakeshore, they were both like, I just need a second, and as I told Rob, really wanting to honor the Lakeshore audiences first for being so supportive and so loyal. When Lakeshore built that new theater, the kind of support and generosity from the community to be able to build this beautiful theater. I mean, it's giving me goosebumps right now. How lucky you all are that you have this wonderful theater that has been around since 1953. And the reason it's been around is because it has such great support. So wanting for sure to write something that is going to honor the audience and the supporters and to celebrate your community. And it's sort of a gift to you and the wonderful community that has been supporting them all these years and continues to support them throughout this pandemic, because eventually this will be over. Eventually we'll go back to live theater. And it's so great to know that Lakeshore audiences will be there.
Well, I know we are just so honored and grateful for all of your work on this show. But this isn't obviously your first time into playwriting. So you mentioned that you wrote the well-known Church Basement Ladies series.
So back in 2005, I was hired as a cast member, and all of those shows are inspired by the life and work of these two women, Janet Martin and Suzanne Nelson. They're talking about doing a sequel they approached me and asked if I would be willing to write the sequel. And I was like, I would be honored.
It's really exciting that you were able to be involved in a show that has grown so much, and then also too is so kind of tied to Minnesota.
In a girl's career, you play all kinds of roles. And like I was in Tony and Tina's wedding, one particular relative that I was like, I don't think you're going to want to come see this one, because it just wasn't their, thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I became a church baseball lady, it's like, come on in. So even now in this radio play, Here Comes Santa Claus, the main character, she's Lutheran. I mean, we do mention lutefisk. I mean, you can't not mention lutefisk, So for those of you who don't know what lutefisk is, it's dried cod that's been soaked in lye until it bloats into a jelly-like substance. And then you slide it on a plate and you cover it with melted butter. And you eat it.
So do you like lutefisk?
No, I really don't.
But going back to Here Comes Santa Claus, what about the show makes it special?
Well, the first thing that's special about it is that we're doing it, because again, in this crazy time, so much has been canceled or postponed. So the fact that we can create an original piece of work specifically for this time with everybody at home and in their situation in mind, that's what's so special about it. It's really, really fun for me to get to work with Graydon again. Mm-hmm. That's just been a delight. So this is special for so many reasons. I love Lakeshore. I love the fact that they're doing this at all, that they're trying to give some programming to their audience. I just really love that. And another super fun thing, because I've had the time, people that aren't writers don't care, but there are certain ways that you have to format a script. For those people that are interested, there are different ways that you format. You format a play differently than you format a musical, different than you format a screenplay, differently than you format a radio play. So even when I wrote this, I wrote the script first. People are going to have to keep track of this when they watch. I wrote the script for rehearsals as you would write a script, but then because they're doing a radio play, I wrote a second script that is just the radio play, and it's formatted differently. They're performing a radio play, and I was like, in theory, that script needs to look different, and it can't have it. You can't have all the lines that they say in the play. You can only have the lines that you have in the radio play. It's very complicated. This is a bit of trivia that people can look for.
I was going to say, you just threw the audience an Easter egg. Besides the Easter egg, why else should people check out this show?
The fact that this is being recorded, we are filming it specifically for you. And so I think you should check it out, because this is not, you're not just going to sit and listen. We're hoping this will be participatory. If we do our job right, you're going to know when it's time for you to applaud, just as if you were in the radio audience. So that's my hope. But again, as we're recording this, we haven't filmed it yet. So that's what I'm hoping is going to happen, is that as you sit at home, you're going to feel like you are enjoying this live. Clap and laugh along and maybe sing along at the end. Fans and patrons of Lakeshore Players, we wrote this piece for you.
Thank you so much, Greta, for taking the time to talk with me today. Again, if you want tickets to our show, you can go to our website at www.lakeshoreplayers.org/Here Comes Santa Claus, or else you can always call our box office at 651-478-7427. Greta, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. This was so much fun to talk to you about lutefisk and the history of White Bear Lake and all of this fun stuff. And yeah, we just appreciate it so much. So thank you.
Thank you. It was just a thrill to meet you as well.
Thanks again. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.